No worries.
I'm wearing my new favorite shirt.
Which shirt is that?
It says patriotism is the new punk rock.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, we're live.
Yeah, we are on, except for one.
Wow, wow.
While Michael's making sure the rest of our broadcast is going swimmingly across all of our other networks, we'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of the weekly roundup, the Roundtable, by our good friends here at the Liberty First Foundation, Michael Marshall, Jeremy Bishop, Michael Vasquez, and myself, Frank Johnson. We want to welcome everybody to the show. We encourage everybody to comment, ask questions, get involved, agree or disagree. Hold us over the fire. We like getting roasted a little bit. So with that, I'm going to turn the show over to Mike and says, well, Mike, who's up in the top bracket, and let him do his weekly welcome while I enjoy another swig of this Reed's Extra Ginger beer. Probably the most horrible thing.
My drink has ginger beer in it too.
Well, maybe ginger in your beer, but
No, it's got ginger beer in it.
this stuff burns. This is like hot peppers in a soda. Like,
Ginger's got a little bit of a bite to it.
Yeah, it does.
So
That's what Moscow Mule is. Ginger
I
beer.
thought it
and
was
vodka.
the Dos Equis when I was on the way up from the fridge, and I looked. I said, "Ah, damn it, the hell is this? I'll give it a shot."
Well, okay, it's giving you a shot back.
Yeah, well, it's helping clean my sinuses. That's all I can say about it.
So, yes, welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Liberty First Foundation Roundtable for the week of September 23rd, 2022. We do encourage everybody that's watching to join in the chat, comment, post comments. We do like to include those comments in our conversations. Even if they disagree with what we're saying, we do rebut those comments that disagree with us, okay? Because we do want people to challenge us on our positions. Plain and simple, by challenging us, you keep us honest, okay? And you hold us to the fire, okay? You hold us accountable. But not only that, it gives others a chance to see what some of the other positions are that are out there. So we do encourage everybody to post their opinions, post their views, post their comments, whether you agree with us or disagree with us. Okay. It gives us a chance to open conversations that honestly, that's what we need. If we're going to get our country back, we need to have open and honest dialogue. We need to quit being divided. We need to quit being allowing our political positions to keep us in boxes separated from each other. So with that, I'm going to say welcome everybody. And I know Frank and Jeremy have been working on something that is actually very, very exciting. And I'm going to go ahead and turn over the floor for them and let them discuss what they've been working on.
I have only been acting as a sounding board for Jeremy's brilliance and his ideas. He's taken the lead on this. He's only consulted with me for my artistic flair, and that's about it. But Jeremy has taken the bull by the horns and gone running. He has gone running. We've been hinting around. Well, before you show it off, let's explain why this is going to be taking place. We've been hinting around over quite some period of time that we have been trying to formulate some sort of a membership type basis organization, because we really need the help and support of the people that we're helping represent as far as our rights go. And for the last 6 years, we've been completely and totally self-funded, and it takes a toll. And we have been working so diligently at creating content for everybody, whether it's doing research, traveling, interviews, and everything else, that we said we really need a little bit of help. And there's been very few ways that people could help us until we came up with a membership program. And one of the benefits of having the membership program, aside from exclusive content for articles, videos, interviews, news, reviews, and a whole host of other things that we're going to be putting together, including coupon codes to major manufacturers, discounts across the line for different organizations that we deal with. We want to be able to make sure that we can give something back to those people that are going to support us with a one-time per year fee of their membership due. Unlike those other organizations that charge you monthly, we're going to charge you a really minimal fee once a year that just helps us keep the lights on. And one of those people is going to have to listen to Jeremy as he explains the rest of it.
So, as a thank you for the first two new 250 members of the Liberty First Foundation, we're going to be sending out to this complimentary Henry Golden Boy 22, but this is one of a kind. There's only one like it in the world. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's got the logo engraved in the receiver and filled in, and there will only be one of these made ever, and this will be going out to one of the first 250 new members of the Liberty First Foundation. Thank you, Jan. It is beautiful.
Yeah,
and we are really, really excited about the big things coming, and really excited to support you guys in the same way you've supported us, and encourage you guys, and thank you for everything you do for us.
Yeah, without people that support us, it's very hard for us to get the word out. There's only so much we can do. But with everybody out there liking, sharing, commenting, and just being involved with what we do, because you really be surprised how just by showing up in the chat and spending time with us out of your schedule is such an encouraging thing for us, because otherwise it's just a bunch of guys sitting in a room talking to ourselves. Having you spend the time with us really encourages us to go further, because we know that we're making a difference for you. And by you being here, you make the difference for us. And we decided that if we were going to do a membership-based program, we wanted to be able to reward people in ways that other organizations don't really do. And one of the things we had tossed around was giving away a rifle. And we decided that we were going to go with the Henry Golden Boy, only because we have extensive experience with the Henry Golden Boy. Mine is on the rack behind me. It is the smoothest shooting, most accurate 22 lever action. It's 50 state legal. It's great as a trainer. It's great for the kids. You don't have to worry about being recoil sensitive. And quite frankly, it is one of the most beautiful rifles manufactured today. Octagon barrel, brass sight in the front, brass receiver. And the only thing we can do to make it better is put that beautiful Liberty First Foundation, which was designed by Michael Marshall, and have that engraved right into the receiver, so it truly is a one-of-a-kind piece. And we are going to have links available where people can actually go and become a legitimate member of the Liberty First Foundation. And one of our first 250 members is going to receive that rifle as a thank you. So everybody's got an equal chance of having that sent to them. The only thing that we're going to have to do is have it sent to an FFL. And, of course, you have to be legally able to receive the rifle. And if not, well, we'll figure something out. That'll all be detailed on the page.
We'll take care of you.
And we're going
so if we bludgeon you guys to death with ads about it, Dal will get you the information.
I was actually getting ready to get into that, Dal. Okay, where do you sign up? Okay, you're going to be able to sign up a couple of different ways. We're going to be holding some special events at Red Dot Firearms in Layton, Utah, where you can go right there and you can actually see the rifle, everything else. Right there on site.
Disclaimer on that. there was an issue where right now there'll be some very nice pictures of it, but we may not be able to store it there.
Okay. So that's up in the air on whether or not you'll actually be able to actually see the rifle.
But lots of pictures.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, the other way that you're going to be able to sign up is through our website at https://l1f.us. That officially we will be starting up signups and everything so that you can become a member on November 1st. November 1st, our new membership site will go live, where you will have access to exclusive content. We're going to be developing courses and everything else. So that will be going live on November 1st. And at that time, we'll also start accepting people to sign up to become new members. The cost is going to be $15 a year. And again, the first 250 will be eligible to win this beautiful rifle.
Sorry, that was me. Sorry.
But if go ahead. If you don't get in the first 250, don't be discouraged, because there will be other things after the first 250.
Yeah, we are not going to leave anybody behind when it comes to memberships. You're going to make sure that every
250, we're shutting the door. No.
Yeah, we're going to make sure that every group and continue to support us is going to be benefited with things that they're never going to be able to get with another organization.
Well, this is our first. Let's be honest about this. This is our first true membership drive. Sure, we've allowed people to sign up for newsletters and other things on our website, where you can keep up to date on any new content that we put on there and whatnot. This is actually a true membership where you're going to be, where we're going to have exclusive content. You're going to have early access to all of our new content. That's still up to debate on how long that early access is going to last before it's available to everybody. But you're going to have access to that content immediately, where people that are just coming to our website or that are not paid members, they're going to get that content down the road at some point. You're also going to be able to attend exclusive webinars that are going to be member only webinars. You're also going to be able to join in on member only panels where we have discussions, and we actually allow our members to join in on those discussions, where we talk about some of the current legislation that's getting ready to go on, and we detail exactly how we go about fighting against some of these egregious laws that are being put forth. So there's going to be a lot of value for that $15 per year.
And that's not even to discount the coupon codes for different items that we're going to have that are available through our website. And it's not just gun related stuff. So I know a lot of people don't necessarily go in for guns. They're more about, civil liberties and stuff like that. But there's other great products and companies that we deal with all the time. Stuff that we've reviewed, stuff that we are going to review, and things that we have said, wow, this is a really great product. And we've worked out deals with different organizations that'll save you a few bucks. So if you spend $15 for a membership and we get you 10% discount code off of something, and you spend $150 on something, well, your membership paid for itself.
And there's going to be some exclusive member only giveaways and sweepstakes that we're going to run from time to time too.
And we have the 12 months of Michael photo calendar. Coming out.
Yeah, you're going to scare
they have to pay
away.
if they don't want that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They have to pay if they don't want that.
Yeah, well,
we'd have to pay them. They would pay us not to receive it.
Exactly.
Oh, Dale, don't worry about it. There's going to be plenty of stuff that we're going to have that is all labeled and branded materials. But I'll tell you the God's honest truth, Dal. When it comes to trying to find companies that'll actually brand stuff for you and send it out when people purchase it, it's an extremely difficult ordeal. You would be surprised how many companies out there have gotten so woke that even the word liberty is an insult to them and they don't want to deal with it. So we have to travel extensively to find manufacturers that'll just carry logos for us. I mean, this is a funny story. That logo that you see right here up in that top corner, we own that logo. Michael designed that logo. That's his logo. Okay, that's our intellectual property. For Michael's birthday last year, I tried to get that logo engraved on a manufacturer's windproof lighter that's been around since 1938. I'm not going to mention their name. They wouldn't engrave our logo on that lighter unless we sent them a legal disclaimer saying that we owned it. Even though I was calling them from a phone number that said Liberty First Foundation on the caller ID, sent them a fax from the same phone line, an email that said Liberty First Foundation, our own header. I couldn't get one lighter engraved for Michael's birthday. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing. So if you imagine how hard it is getting one lighter engraved, imagine how hard it would be for us to get a whole bunch of lunch boxes put together.
Yeah, it's crazy these days. Where they go with this is they make it so hard.
It is, and we honestly, the reason that we adopted this name rather than other names, because I mean, we are, myself mostly, I'm more the gun guy out of the group than Jeremy. Jeremy and I are both more the gun guys. The two Michaels are more about civil liberties and the Constitution and all the rest of that, and economics. Me and Jeremy just want to shoot stuff, blow things up, have fun, make sure everybody else is allowed to also. That's all gets out our gig. But we didn't put the word gun or firearm in our title when we formulated all those years ago because we didn't want to be stigmatized. But now it's to the point where liberty is the stigma.
Yeah.
And who would have thought just in a few years that would have become a dirty word?
And here's the thing. They're starting to tag organizations that have liberty in their name as domestic terrorists.
Well, look at what happened. I was going to say, just look at what happened in North Dakota with the 18-year-old. He didn't even have to say anything other than I'm a Republican. And we saw that demonic, insane man decided that, oh, you said you're a Republican. Well, Joe Biden says you're a domestic terrorist. You're an extremist. And he ran the kid over with his truck. An 18-year-old, this 41-year-old man ran over an 18-year-old because the kid had an idea that he did not like, that Joe Biden doesn't like, that we have divided our nation to think that someone with a different idea is dangerous to the point that you would run them over with a truck. The kid's on foot. This is the danger. And so it's not a surprise that when we say liberty, and you say liberty, and all of a sudden every business is like, oh, I'm scared now. I don't know what to do.
And then to add insult to injury, Kyle on video. They have him on video defending his own life. He gets hit with $2 million bill. This guy, this lunatic, runs this 18-year-old kid over, murders him with his truck, admits to the police he ran him over because of his political view, called the kid's mother to brag how he murdered this woman's child, and gets $50,000 bail release.
Oh, did you hear what happened when he was in the court? When he was in the courtroom with the judge, he was saying, why do I have to pay $50,000? Because I have a family, I have a house, I have jobs and bills. Why should I have to pay $50,000 for murdering an 18-year-old? He is so desensitized because We've seen Biden and AOC and Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi. They have demonized Americans so much that they have dehumanized them, and he's not even sensitive to the fact that he just took away that kid's job, his potential for a family, affected his family and his friends, and denied him the opportunity to own anything ever again. And he had no appreciation of it and is in the courtroom arguing with the judge why he would be charged $50,000, where I'm thinking, why doesn't he get $5 million to make the point that it is in America, it is inhumane and insane to ever consider having physical conflict with anyone else just because they have an idea you don't like. My God, where have we allowed some of these people to take us where that is a realistic concern these days? This is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm very angry about that.
And for a judge to go along with that, for a judge to actually sign off on that kind of bail.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand that at all. And I also don't understand how none of our political punditry across our major news networks have come down and attributed this case of violence to Mr. Biden, who has come out and called the MAGA Republicans the threats of democracy, enemies of the state, or that guy who's running for Senate who said we have to kill this movement. We have to confront it and kill it. Now, I remember there was a time when Nancy Pelosi was being interviewed and she was talking about the rhetoric, the horrible, violent rhetoric coming from the Bush administration and then the Trump administration. Where is she talking about the rhetoric coming from this administration or the people that are running to become part of that ticket? I don't understand. I mean, you have I'm never the one who comes out and says that guy who shot up the ballpark when Scalise got shot. I didn't go blaming the Democrats for what some guy did.
No.
This is what some friggin' lunatic did. You blame the lunatic. All right. When somebody goes out there and runs over people in Charlottesville, I blame the guy who drove the car. People do things that are evil every single day. They are responsible for it. Just because something is politically based doesn't necessarily mean that there's a politician who crept into that person's house, planted the seed through a hole in the brain, and let that fester and controlled them remotely from K Street. People are responsible for their own actions. So I'm not the first person. I'm not going to be the guy who condemns Biden or condemns this other guy. But all I am going to say is, where is the balance in media when they call conservative talking points calls for violence and murder, but no one will ever do the same thing when it comes to left-wing talking points, when the results of left-wing talking points can be just as, if not more, heinous than that of which they condemned earlier.
You're being too nice, Frank. This is a direct consequence of the Philadelphia Joe Biden commentary saying that, and he said, MAGA Republicans are domestic extremists and terrorists. He came out and said it on international news with the full force of the United States government, 2 Marines standing behind him with optics, making sure that he was embedded in a red light, blood red imagery coming straight out of Emperor Palpatine, coming straight out of the Reichstag. I mean, he knew the optics. His team knew the optics that they were putting out for the nation with the wording in that speech, which was a political speech. It was not a national speech. This should have never been paid for by American taxpayers. This was a political speech that had one goal. That was to demonize his political opponents and to silence them for fear of what would come next. And what has come next is this kid in North Dakota being targeted in the same wording with the same logic, verbatim coming out of Joe Biden's mouth, just like we've heard from the others. But he is the guy sitting in the White House. He was the guy who went on national TV, totally ignoring the Americans that he abandoned in Afghanistan, forgetting about the Americans he's abandoned in the Ukraine. Literally right now, tens of thousands of literally 10,000 Americans. He's the one who has been trotting around for the last 18 months saying that if you have any opposition to anything that he has to say, you are the problem, you are the issue, you are the extremist, whether you're vaccinated or not, or whether you happen to believe in an America First policy that making America great is somehow evil and insidious, when every person of every government in the world will always think of their country first. It is essential. That's self-preservation. And he is saying that if you want to preserve the nation, the Constitution, our system of life, which is not perfect, but it is the best in the world, and that demonic man with his team came out and asked for this to happen. They knew this was the consequence and they didn't care. And I will call them out for that because I think that is inciting violence. I'm sorry, guys. This has got me.
No, you're perfectly justified in what you feel. I keep trying to train myself not to be the scumbag that you know what I'm saying? I keep trying to be somebody who's going to be slightly above what they've been doing to our side of the aisle for so many years now. I keep trying to be that person. I'm trying not to give in to what I would like to say, which is exactly what you said, because I still say, well, in a court of law, could Biden be charged with inciting this?
Yes. Yes. Could he
be convicted of it?
They are.
Because we can indict a ham sandwich, we can't convict one.
Here's the thing.
Well, I could eat one. I'm freaking hungry.
Okay, this is the whole January 6th committee.
Yeah, is
trying to come down on Trump for inciting the January 6th event because of his rhetoric. And here we have a sitting president that is literally using his platform to do the exact same thing they are accusing Trump of doing.
Yeah. With words that are very, very, I mean, you can't, even since he's made that, even members of the left have had to turn around and say he went too far. How many of them said that language is too incendiary? And I'm not saying that presidents aren't incendiary from time to time, that they're not very passionate or even objectionable. We've had that through our history, but I've never even heard of anyone get this close to 1939 Germany. And I don't like to make the whole German World War II analogy or comparison very often because it's overused, but I think this is appropriate. And now we're seeing literally after the Reichstag, that's when we got Kristallnacht. For those Americans or anyone who doesn't know what that is, or I'm pronouncing it improperly in German, that's the night of the broken glass. It was right after the Reichstag speech in 1939. It was, I believe, September of 1939. Please look it up if people don't know it. And what we saw is that was the flame that lit the brown shirts going out after the Jews. It was the start of the censorship, massive censorship, openly and blatantly. There was no more hiding behind certain veiled words. It wasn't hiding behind laws and statutes that might be interpreted one way or another. It was just blatant and open. And now we're seeing this. with this guy in North Dakota who's trying to use the whole bail reform to get him and cashless bail to get himself off and to discount what he's done. And the major news media overwhelmingly are like, well, what story in North Dakota? Something happened in North Dakota? Oh, well, it's not that big a deal. It's not national news.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd like to see this. I'd like to see this story get brought up into the January 6th committee, because there has been a little bit of pushback. I was watching some of the footage earlier this week about the claim that one of the officers was beaten to death on the steps of the Capitol with a fire extinguisher when it did not happen.
No.
And it was entered into the record, as a matter of fact, that
Really?
an officer was beaten to death on the steps of the Capitol building with the fire extinguisher. It was later had to be retracted because
it's factually
it's
incorrect.
bullshit. It's bullshit.
Purely false.
Yeah. But I would like to see one of those few conservative leaning members that might be on that committee, not Miss Cheney, say, hey, listen, by the way, if you want to talk about incitement, hey, this has got a lot more of a direct correlation versus the guy who said go out and protest in peace, be peaceful, and all the rest of that. It'd be nice to see that. But getting back to your analysis of Kristallnacht is exactly right. The way that everything happened in Germany and the steps that took place, that was the beginning of the Holocaust. There's only one reason.
Vast talk. Oh, sorry.
I said there's only one reason why that hasn't begun here, at least to the extent that it began in Germany. And that's Amendment number 2.
Yeah.
Because you
absolutely. And Vast touched on. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you try and run me over because of my political views, you might get me to run over, but you're going to have a couple of holes in your windshield on the way. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
That 18-year-old kid didn't have that luxury afforded to him because he's too young to defend himself. Not too young to be murdered, just too young to defend himself. Old enough to vote, but old enough to join the military, old enough to get married, have a family, and do everything else, but he's too young to drink and he's too young to defend himself.
Yeah.
Now we got an 18-year-old kid dead because he's a MAGA supporter.
Yeah. Jeremy, what were you going to
Well,
say?
I think, Vast, when you touched on if it was appropriate to use the, Nazi Germany reference, not only do I think it's appropriate, I think it's almost mandatory at this point because people refuse to look at it like that. Is my audio still going crazy?
It's better now.
Okay, good. I moved my mic. I apologize. Anyways, so I think it's mandatory, and I really wanted to talk tonight about the situation in Iran, and I think this goes hand in hand with it. But the way I'm going to tie the two together is, so apparently this is okay. What Biden said is okay. What this guy running for office in where was it? To say he wanted to kill the movement and the MAGA movement and silence it. It's okay, but that's okay. And I'm seeing a ton of social media coverage of these protests. They're not riots, they're protests in Iran over what's going on over there. And I'm seeing a lot of support for what's going on over there and how it's okay for them to burn down their city. But the January 6th, the protest, it got a little heated, but that was the end of the world for America. But everything else going on, Kenosha, this situation, and everything else happening right now, the Chaz in Washington, that's out of line. It's unbelievable to me.
Well, let's go back. What was it? 2 summers ago, the yellow vest protests in France that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's huge support for that. Okay, people standing up against the French government. It wasn't that long ago that there's some huge protests of people standing up against government in England.
Mhm.
I mean, we see this all across country. I mean, all across the world happening. And honestly, here is the thing. Okay, and yeah, Jen's good. Mentions another good one. The truckers in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Amsterdam, and Amsterdam too.
Yeah, in Amsterdam and even here in the United States. The thing is people are tired of being oppressed and they're tired of their tyrannical governments trying to control their every action. Okay, we saw some of the things happening Tiananmen Square.
Gentlemen. Mhm.
Yeah, at Tiananmen Square, um, where the guy stood up against the tank. Okay, because people will only take being oppressed so long. And here in the United States, we are fed that we are free. But honestly, are we? I want us to really think about this. Okay. The United States, if I'm not mistaken, has the largest amount of police per capita than anywhere else in the world. I want us to think about this. This is a free country, but yet we have the most police per capita than anywhere else in the world.
Well, we also have the largest incarceration rates.
Exactly, we
We're
do.
also one of the only countries that has private prison facilities, privately owned prison facilities, as opposed to actually government run and operated prison facilities. You have them, they're owned and operated. They may be staffed by state employees or city or federal employees. However, the prison system itself is, many of them are privately owned entities, they're businesses. We're one of the only nations that does that.
Yes, Dell, the United States has more police per capita than China does. I
Now,
I
So
never believe
I
that
found
at
a
first
list.
either, but yeah,
yeah, Jeremy.
So I found a list on that. I'll pull over my other screen and share it in a second. Vatican City is number one with 15,000 police
Oh,
per
well,
100,000 people.
Vatican City is also the world's smallest nation.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, but I mean, Pitcairn Islands in the UK, Montserrat in the UK, Belarus, Monaco, Palestinian Authority, somewhere in New Zealand that I can't pronounce, Brunei, St. Kitts and Nevis, all the way down, even top 30, US is not on there. US doesn't come into. I'll have to find it when I get the actual one where the US is, but it doesn't even show in the top 30 for the highest police per capita.
well, when you're talking about per capita, Michael's talking about number of. And when you look about police, you're also, you have to add in all the different levels of policing that we have in the United States, because when you have a lot of those lists don't count housing authority, transit authority, they don't count correctional facilities, they don't count
Postal inspectors,
facilities, they don't count border patrol and
USDA.
That's fair.
TSA, they don't count for any of that stuff. There is just the Patriot Act alone almost doubled the amount of law enforcement officers. And now, speaking of law enforcement officers, let's give a big round of applause to the United States Postal Service, because as it was reported earlier today by the Washington Times, the United States Postal Service has been working hand in hand with the FBI, spying on conservatives wherever we go. The Postal Service is letting the FBI knows who's getting what mail, who's getting what politicians are sending them this. Heritage Foundation sent you a fundraiser. You must be one of them MAGA people. Let's report you. You're probably not on the list yet. So your postal employees are going to get you on the list. So thank you, FBI, for employing the postal service is not a federal agency, from what we're told, but they have federal employees that drive federal vehicles that are now being loaned to the federal police department, otherwise known as the FBI, to illegally spy on Americans.
Well,
that's just friggin' awesome, isn't it? Wasn't that a great use of our resources?
I want everybody to understand something here, real quick. Okay, a lot of people don't understand the capabilities and the law enforcement capabilities of the United States Postal Service. And I want to remind everybody that the United States Postal Service was a huge component of tracking down the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski.
Right, but you want to know something?
They were the lead investigators in that investigation.
Right, but Michael, that investigation was not kept secret from the public.
Mm-hmm. No,
okay, that was not a matter of doing something behind the people's back. That was something that was saying, hey, as law enforcement, we got to rein in every possible way that we can try and gain evidence and try and find out who this person is, because he's actively killing people, even though, and they did not violate anybody's civil rights by doing what they did in the Kaczynski case. But they're violating our rights with this.
Here's what I want to bring up. Everybody thinks that these capabilities of the Postal Service are something that they just got. Okay. Yeah, I do admit that they're being used improperly. And during the Unabomber, they were used properly. But the Postal Service has always had these capabilities. And everybody's acting very surprised that they have these capabilities when it's capabilities that they've always had. Right. Now they're being used nefariously. Okay, right. We saw this in the 2026 and the 2016 election as well.
Right, but are any of the postal employees going around when Chaz and Occupy Wall Street and all these other riots, burning down cities all across the United States, when all of these things were taking place? Did you have plainclothes mailmen, mail delivery people in plain clothes walking around with signs identifying themselves as the people burning down the buildings, gathering intel for the FBI? No, you didn't have that. But you go to a Make America Great Again rally, or you go to a school board, to complain that they're bringing transgenders in there to try and coerce your 5-year-old kid. You're talking about sex and all of the rest of crap. You got them over there gathering. Okay, oh, that's Mr. So-and-so. He lives over there. He's at the meeting. Oh, she's at the meeting. Okay, great. All right. Do they have abilities? Yeah, but let's go back to the Jurassic Park. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Well, exactly, and I totally agree with that.
This is improper to the nth degree.
Okay,
it's sickening to me.
I've also said on this forum multiple times that the police powers in the United States are being wholly abused, and they've been being abused for a long time. Okay, and here is one perfect example, and actually I was thinking about this week. Okay, how many times have you heard of somebody going to jail for speeding? I'm not talking reckless driving. I'm talking speeding, going 5-10 miles over the speed limit.
No.
Oh, I'm sure it happens.
It's not a criminal offense. it's classified as a civil offense, even though it is a criminal law. And the only thing that happens, and the only reason why speed limits are enforced, are one, to give law enforcement a door to improperly investigate people, and number two, to raise revenues for municipalities.
Well,
That's all.
A victimless crime is a revenue source.
Yeah, that's
Well,
all
I
it
think
is. It's a
the
revenue
revenue
source.
comes first. The fishing expedition comes second, because law enforcement understands one thing and that's that the citizens don't understand the law, and by a lot I mean their rights. I see people getting
Speaking of fixed,
I see people getting pulled
go
over.
ahead.
You're in control of the vehicle, and the cop's yelling through the window that he wants the identification of the guy sitting in the passenger seat. Well, guess what? He don't have to give nothing that up. You don't have
No,
to
you
give that
don't.
up. He's not in control of the vehicle. You have to deal with the driver. That guy doesn't have to answer anything. Doesn't have to say anything. You can't pull him out of the vehicle. You can't do anything. That's it. But people don't understand their rights, and law enforcement, sadly, they take that into consideration with their fishing expeditions. I got pulled over once, and I wouldn't let the guy search my car. Now I'm driving a car. I'm at the time I'm driving the vehicle at all tinted windows. As a matter of course, being pulled over and being the law enforcement family and all the rest of that, I don't feel like getting shot. So I always try to make things as easy as possible for the officer coming up to the car, because I know what is going to happen. I pull over, I throw the four-ways on, I put the car in park, I shut the engine, I take the keys, I hold them out the window so he sees I don't have the keys. I take them, I dump the keys on the roof. That's what I do. This way, that officer knows, all right, he's not going to have to go chasing me at any time during this thing. If I'm got windows that are tinted, I open up the back windows so you can see in the car. There's nobody else there. I never have nothing in the car to hide, so I don't really care. But if you want to start searching my vehicle, window go back up, I said go get a warrant, because you ain't searching shit. You ain't getting into my vehicle. Then they say, oh well, if you don't consent to search, we'll have the dog come out.
Okay.
All right, good. Let the dog come out. However, I'm going to request that before your dog circles my vehicle, that I have my lawyer present and that the handler tells me what the dog's tell is. Tell me what the dog is going to signal if he should happen to find something that would initiate a probable cause for you to have to search my vehicle. Is he going to pour at my car? Is he going to sit down? Is he going to take a crap? Is he going to pee on my tire? What is the dog going to do? Because I'm going to watch that dog. And if that dog doesn't do the signal that he says, you ain't getting into my car. And if you challenge law enforcement with the basic knowledge of your rights, you're not gonna you'll catch attitude, but you won't catch problems. But law enforcement in this country relies on the ignorance of the average citizen to not know their rights. These are some of the things we're going to be covering in those seminars that will be given for members only in the future. So we want to make sure that everybody's properly educated and that you know your rights.
Okay.
God,
They
I
use,
get so annoyed with this crap.
well, and here's the thing. Okay. A lot of cops will, if you refuse to submit to a search of your vehicle, they will call in a canine. Now, they're only allowed to detain you for so long while that canine gets there. And it's not supposed to be in excess of what a typical traffic stop will be. It's been proven in multiple cases, and one in particular, Florida v. Harris, that an average of 80% canine alerts for drugs or whatever are false. They are wrong indications that they really did not have a reason. This can actually be pushed up so that they indicate more often than the 80% of false positives. with various training tactics that all law enforcement know, all dog handlers know how to get their dog to indicate a positive indication. Okay. So canine search, just because the dog gives a positive indication, I don't believe that should be grounds for probable cause. However, multiple courts have upheld that a positive indication from a canine is probable cause for a search of a vehicle.
Well, you got to remember, Mike.
I think that is wrong.
Yeah, but Mike, you got to remember, very often when you're in that scenario, the officer will say, "Dog found something," and then they go and they assume the positive and they infer the positive with the owner of the vehicle, which then infers and confers the right to search the vehicle at that point. The dog gave us a positive, so we can look at your car now. Okay. And now, when you say okay, you've now given them permission because they inferred the positive that they had that right. And the owner of the vehicle, not knowing what their actual rights are in that situation, and probably a bit stressed at that point, are now going to assent and give them that positive right, which is why it can be used in a court. Because that person, did you say yes when I said okay, dog gave a positive, I want to search your car now? You said yes, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Okay, it's now moot. You've given the right to have your vehicle searched.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's
even though you didn't necessarily have to do
And
that.
and actually, you bring up a very good point there, Michael. Not only with canines, but we are taught from almost from birth to never challenge authority.
Mhm.
Okay. And we are told police have authority over us. Well, no. The citizens have authority over law enforcement. There are very, very few circumstances where police actually have authority over the citizens. Very few circumstances. Okay. Every other, at all other times, the citizens have authority over law enforcement.
Which is why they assume the affirmative, and they will lead the person to give them the permission or the opportunity for whatever it is they want to do. And now I want to make it clear, I love the police. I back the blue. I participate in putting together rallies, and I'm a very vocal supporter, much to the chagrin of the local progressive leaders of tomorrow, BLM, Antifa, and all the other far left organizations in my region and throughout New York State. But that doesn't mean I give police carte blanche either, nor does it mean that we don't call them out when they've done something wrong, like assume rights or powers that they don't have.
Well, exactly.
You need to understand that difference. Just because you tell an officer, no, you can't do that because they don't have the right to do that, is not then saying, oh, well, I'm part of BLM and I want to have an autonomous zone in my neighborhood and kidnap my neighbors. Not the same thing. We got to make sure people understand that.
And I do agree that law enforcement has a role in our communities. I I I fully support that. But there are very defined limits on what that role is. And the thing is we constantly keep allowing those limits to be expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded. We've allowed it to be expanded through DUI checkpoints. We've allowed it to be expanded with red light cameras. We've allowed it to be expanded with speed cameras. That issue tickets where there isn't even law enforcement there on site. Okay, where actually nobody witnesses it. A camera witnessed it.
Mhm.
Okay. We keep, like I said, we keep allowing this expansion of police powers, and we have to start checking these police powers.
No, I'd say all government. Mike.
Well, yeah, all government powers. Okay,
Oh,
but
law enforcement is just the domestic military arm of local government.
Mhm.
That's all law enforcement. That's all law enforcement is. It's the nearest force. It's the nearest threat of force that can be used against you for non-compliance with government regulation.
Yeah, but we got to make sure people, and this is something that the public has to actively take a part in, kind of like, because as an example, and we were talking about this just before the show started, HR 2996, which is also known as the Article 1 Act by Chip Roy out of Texas. Almost no one has heard about this. In fact, before today, I didn't hear about this, and I read this stupid kind of stuff all the time about the bills that are being proposed in Congress. It's sad, first of all, that most people don't know that if you go, you can actually look at what's being proposed in Congress, congress.gov. You'll
Yep.
see every bill that's being proposed out there and who's supporting it and what it actually says. Almost no one looks at that. And most people don't know that they can. But this bill in particular by Chip Roy, again, the Article 1 Act or HR 2996, zero news media covering it, zero news media talking about it. And what is it saying? The president does not have the unilateral power to say, I have emergency powers forever, a la what we saw under the pandemic, where suddenly we saw this at local, state, federal levels, all the way to the president, where they're like, okay, we're enacting emergency powers because there's this emergency for the nation, and I'll have powers until the day I give them up. In New York State, appointed Governor Kathy Hochul has continued to extend her emergency powers in New York State because of what? We've seen the CDC change its position on COVID. We had Biden come out and publicly state COVID is over. We've seen that the public has gone on with their lives without all of the mandates and restrictions, for the most part, on their daily lives. And she's like, well, no, it's still a state of emergency. I still have emergency powers overruling our government and the public.
And the thing is,
no.
she can't lose those powers as long as she keeps renewing them. And she's the one that's allowed to renew them. And Como kept doing it too.
Yeah.
Until the Assembly and, well, the New York State Legislature, the New York Assembly and the New York Senate actually vote to remove those powers, she can hang on to them indefinitely.
Which is terrifying to me. And this is why both the bill by Chip Roy and just looking at the next election, we need to change this. People need to reassert the public power. We, the people. It's always being used in a manner to try and make it sound, it's very slogany. It's being used. I mean, Biden used it to justify his speech of the Reichstag over in Philadelphia. He said, how many times did he say, we the people, to try and make it sound like, oh, I'm only doing this because every American, the majority of Americans, want me to demonize the other part of America. No, that isn't what most Americans want. Even most of the left doesn't want that. The very small sliver, 3% of Democrats, which are the progressive left, they want that. But no one else wants it. And yet
I think it's a higher percentage, Mike. I think this time you're being too nice.
Well,
maybe.
Well, I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, but something I noticed about that speech was, Joe Biden is the king of gaffes and messing up speeches and saying incoherent, rambling nonsense. That was the one speech that I saw him where you could tell he was truly passionately well-spoken during, and I don't think I heard a mumble during anything he said that entire time. You could tell he was into that speech.
Yeah, his injections were right on point for that one.
Well, he's feeling the full breadth and depth of his power. Strike me down, Skywalker, and I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine. He is Emperor Palpatine, after absorbing all the younglings' energies. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know who was he talking today about. Well, you were 12 when I was 30. I remember you even ran a long time together. I don't know, some other woman he was talking to today who was 12 when he was palling around with her when she was 12 and he was 30. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying what I'm not saying. Something's not right.
I don't know. It terrifies me that we are seeing.
The guy is evil. The guy is just evil.
Yes.
He's evil incarnate. He really is evil. Here's the deal. Obama hated America because we were colonialists. I mean, colonizers. He was part of that colonizer movement, from the Rules for Radicals and all the rest of that stuff, and and him growing up with Jeremiah Wright's church and all the rest of the stuff. Yeah, and he just hated America. But I think it's because he's ideologically driven to just hate everything America stands for. I just think Biden is just driven by evil. Because you can say a lot of things about Barry. I don't think he's taking improper showers with his kids.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Although
I don't think he's up there sniffing every little girl that comes by him. There's a lot going on with Biden that I just say is just evil, and I think that that speech just manifested it. He just found himself at the. Ooh, look at! I'm just thinking it was just like all the caps coming off any restrictor plates he have, and he was just going full crazy.
But look at all the things we see now. See, and everyone likes to compartmentalize a lot of the things that we're seeing today. I hear this a lot in a couple of live streams that I do, including my own. And there's people who say, well, it's just that moment. Well, there's just him in Philly. No, there's him in Philly. There is the movement. Well, we saw the Democrats just passed the election laws. They want to change the election laws so that you can never deny an election, even if there are questions existing in that election at that moment. They want to eliminate that. We're seeing that they're trying to take away the Second Amendment. They're literally monetizing, taking away your Second Amendment rights with the red flag laws. We're destroying our economy. They're still spending. Biden was just talking to the UN yesterday, promising to give $6 billion, part of that, to South Korea, which we don't have. We're printing more money, and we're promising to print even more money, which is inflationary, as they deny that we are in a recession, though we have qualified in every single category that we are in a recession. And we just saw that the Fed chairman just admitted that interest rates are going to 4.5% by the end of this year, because there's so much inflation going on, because and he still doesn't want to say we're in a recession, but yet he doesn't see the interest rates coming back down until at least 2024, if not 2025. Again, that's the definition of what you do in a recession. So we have a lot of denial that's going on. We have a lot of compartmentalized news that's coming at us, telling us it's only one thing. It's only one thing. They're not all connected, but yet they are all connected. They're all part of the same news cycle. They're all interrelated, because when you hear Maxine Waters saying, when you see them in the streets, you go after them. When we see that AOC saying, don't believe the Supreme Court, don't follow their regulations. We hear Biden say, hey, if you question anything, if you ask any questions whatsoever, you're un-American and a domestic terrorist. And we see our economy falling apart as they spend more and more money, knowing that it's going to put us in a worse and worse place. These things aren't isolated, they're all connected, they're all together because it's the same people involved in every one of those steps, and that's hurting us. We got to recognize that.
Well, that's don't look at the action, look at the result. What will happen if this passes? Look at the end result. If the end result is it damages America, and every other end result of every one of their other schemes damages America, well, that's your connective tissue. You don't have to have, you got 100 gunmen shooting at one target. You can't say, well, each one's got a different motive. They're all shooting at the same target from different points, from different angles, from different areas. Their objective is the same. Doesn't matter what caliber they're using, what gun they're using, how far away they're shooting from, how many times they shot at, what they're using optics or not. If they're all shooting at the same target, they have the same objective. It doesn't matter what tool it is that they're using, they're trying to destroy the country.
Yeah, I agree
It's
with
the
you.
end goal, not the tool.
I
Well,
agree.
and one of the biggest things is they're not trying so much to destroy the country as they are trying to literally make us an authoritarian country.
Which destroys our nation. I mean, they are
Yeah.
literally looking to.
It destroys the principles of our country, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But that is it exactly. And actually, Agent Black, it's an organized and deliberate. Americans have been infiltrated and they want to destroy the Western world. Okay. They do. Okay. And one of the biggest roadblocks towards many of the global agendas is the American citizen. Okay. Because a lot of globalist based agendas, the common, ordinary, everyday American would not stand for, would not allow them to be implemented. However, if they set up a total authoritarian regime here in the United States, now many of those agendas can be pushed through, and we've got no say in it.
Well,
We no longer have, and this has been started. We've discussed about this before in past episodes. Okay, this isn't something that started recently. This is something that's been going on since the late 1800s, early 1900s. And we don't realize this because they've taken small steps all along the way. And actually, we can even trace it back even further than that. Okay, with the start of the national banking system, okay, and the national bank. Okay, and we've got egregious things that where they have violated the Constitution, knowingly violated the Constitution, and we just allow them to get away with it.
Well, did you ever wonder why they throw so much shit at us so quickly?
It's because it's overwhelming. It makes it very hard to defend against.
It's not only that it makes it hard to defend against. It's there's another reason to it that's it's so duplicitous. Every one of us has got. All right, I'm the Second Amendment. All right, you push my button, it's going to be the Second Amendment button. That's the one I'm going to get riled up about more than anything else. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably because I don't have little kids. Right? You take somebody who's very similar to me, maybe not so much a gun guy, but got a couple little kids, and you tell them that they're going to be teaching his first and second graders about, whether or not what gender they should allow themselves to be. He's going to get upset about that. You get somebody who's single, they ain't got no kids. Maybe they're still in their 40s. Maybe all they're concerned about is their portfolio. And then they see about what's going on with the economy and they see their shit tanking. They get upset about that. Somebody else gets upset about gas because they drive for a living. Somebody else gets upset about food because they have 6 kids at home, and that's what their main concern about is. So everybody is concerned about a different element of what's going wrong with society, and that's what we get upset about. Is too much for each of us to get upset about everything all at once, because, to use the word that was used before, we cannot compartmentalize that many things at one time that we can focus our attention on. So they'll introduce shit that makes 8% of us get mad about one thing, 4% of us get mad about something else, 12% of us get mad about this, 11% mad about that. But meanwhile, 95% of the country's mad. Because we're all getting screwed.
Yeah.
We're all getting screwed. It's just we're all getting screwed, and we're upset about getting screwed about different things. But what we don't do as a society is see who's doing the screwing and combine our energies to fight against them and say, okay, you know what? I'm not a member of the media, not me, but I'm just saying, I'm not a member of the media, but I'm a gun guy. I'm going to team up with the guy who's getting silenced in the media because they keep shutting down his goddamn podcast. They keep shutting down his YouTube channel. They keep shutting down all of his shit. They keep costing him all kinds of time and money and everything. That I'm going to be mad. I'm going to stand with him because he's going to stand with me. And the two of us are going to stand with the single mother with the 4 kids who can't afford to feed them. And the 3 of us are going to stand with the other person who's paying $4 a gallon of gas because the only job he can hold down is Uber right now, and he's spending more than he's making. If we start to stand together on the things that concern each of us, and start to stand together and say, I understand this person's anger, and I can sympathize and explain it with them. If we start doing that and realizing that we're all being screwed by the same people, we'll be much better off, because a house divided against itself cannot stand. The American people have got to unite. Forget about United States. We need united people. And I think better articulate to each other why what bothers me should be bothering you, because what bothers you should be bothering me.
Well, Frank, I think the way we do that, and what they're desperately trying to make sure we don't do, is go back to the Constitution. Just go back to the Constitution and what we founded this nation on, and the principles that have built up this nation. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, almost everybody fits under that umbrella, and which is why so many people, millions of people, are always trying to get into this nation, and why so many other nations around the world are so concerned about what our leadership is doing. Because the principles that are in our Constitution, as they have been detailed and very intelligently thought about. I mean, this document has stood the test of time because they really spent the time to think about every word they put in there and how it affects everything. And that's our unifying thing, because at the end of the day, all these different things that we've been talking about so far in the show, all the ways that these things are affecting us, they all go back to the Constitution. The kid in North Dakota, which we started all this conversation about, that's freedom of speech. That's the First Amendment, which is now being whittled away and warped and destroyed. We have the overreach of government, which goes into Article 1 in several points. The overreach of government under Article 1, Section 8, as I was talking with Mike about just last week.
Mm-hmm.
We go back to the Constitution, and all of the problems, all the things that we are upset and want to fight about are in that document. And if we all actually read it, paid attention to it, and started from there to go to anything else next, we would be in a much better position in our nation. Not that we all believe the same thing. No, this isn't communism. It's not socialism. And it wouldn't matter whether you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, I don't care what you are, plus, toaster, I could care less. You would still be able to, we all can still look at that document and go, yep, and that applies to us all. We don't need a new version for whatever new category and checkbox someone wants to create. You all fit under the Constitution. And that really needs to be one of the first. We need to demand that our children are taught from grade school, elementary school, the Constitution as it exists under the meanings then, not now, then. And they need to be taught that, like the civics classes that we used to have in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, that we no longer have, which is why kids don't know what their rights are. And so whenever someone comes up and says, well, you don't have that right, they go, oh, I didn't know. Okay. And they just let it go. And then everything else falls apart because, oh, well, we can do this now. No, you can't do that. You never could do that. And I've actually read the Constitution. You've never had that power. No. And that's why they want to silence us. That's why they want to quiet us, and really why they're attacking us, so that, and keeping everyone divided, like you're mentioning, Frank. I think that's the key. We need really to go back to the Constitution.
Well, we do.
I'm going to put it there. Once everything collapses and it all goes to shit, and I mean all of it goes to shit, when we, the people, are the ones having to pick up the pieces, all the things that we were mad about as individuals aren't going to matter anymore. They're not going to matter anymore, because we're going to have a nation we're going to have to rebuild. And we will have to build it back better, because somebody else is destroying it. For everything that we're all upset about as individuals or as groups, when it goes to crap, it's not going to matter. The price of gas isn't going to matter when there's none left. The price of food ain't going to matter when there's none left. What your kids are being taught in school ain't going to matter when the schools are shut down. When the economy is finished and done and the dollar is worth nothing, it's not going to matter what your portfolio is worth anymore. It's not going to matter what gold is worth, because you can't eat it.
True.
Nothing's going to matter. When it collapses, we're all going to have to look at each other and go, okay, how do we get back to a point where it's good? And the only direction that we're going to have is our Constitution. And this time, I would hope that we adhere to it, because it's been bastardized and abused for far too long.
And that's the whole thing. And one of the big things, and Frank, you bring up a very good point. Okay. The authority for enforcement of the Constitution lies with we, the people. Saturday, September 17th, okay, just passed, was Constitution Day.
Mm-hmm.
I actually read through the entire Constitution on a live stream. I had one person that watched that. Okay, we're going to do it every Constitution Day. We're going to read through the Constitution every Constitution Day. Plain and simple, our Constitution was put in place for a very specific reason. The first reason was to unite the states. But the second reason was to give the authority over government to the citizens of the United States. And it defined some very specific powers. And I had a debate with a person earlier this week, that the Constitution was established to set the federal government as the all-knowing power, so to speak, okay, as the ultimate authority. And they got it backwards. They don't understand. Okay, yes, federal law in concurrence with the Constitution is considered the law of the land. And states can't trump that. However, when laws are not congruent with the Constitution, the states, the municipalities, the people have a duty and obligation to resist those laws. Okay. We've stated it on these shows before as well. The entire purpose of our elected representatives and of our governments, its first and primary importance and role is to defend our rights. Our governments no longer do that. They fail at every step of the way. In fact, they are working overtime to violate our rights and no longer protect them.
Why people have to vote. They have to go out and vote. I'm not telling
voting is just a part of it.
Even if it's only symbolic, vote. I mean, I've said it many a time. I'm not telling people who to vote for. And if you hate everyone on the ticket, don't not vote. Then put in Mickey Mouse, put in Wonder Woman, put in Wolverine. I don't care. Vote. Be out there and vote, because if you're not involved in this process, you are silent, and therefore you don't matter. You don't count. Your issues don't count, and you will be steamrolled. And this is true not just in the United States, but like Agent Black, who I know is, and it's good to see you, Agent Black, who I know is in the United Kingdom. It's true everywhere. If you're not involved in the political process, if you're not being vocal, at least to some level, or at least being acknowledged that you're part of the process, then they don't care. That's why there's a thing I've said in many elections, and it's still true to this day. Every election, we're seeing average about 4 in a non-presidential election. We're seeing about 4 out of 10 people vote, roughly. And those 4 people, so 6 out of 10 people instantly do not matter in every election. They're non-existent. They might as well not be alive. They are steamrolled. They no longer count. No matter what they believe, no matter what they say, no matter what they do, they are gone. Out of the 4 people that are left, you have a big donor, a small donor, someone who only votes on issues, and another one who votes every single time but doesn't give money to anyone. Well, if the politicians are dealing and only looking at the people who donate to them, that's number 1 and 2. So that's 50% of the vote right there. All they have to do is get the other 2 to, I don't know, be more upset with the other guy than themselves, and they win because they've got 50% of the vote automatically. We need to change that mindset. And even if you're voting, I don't know, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, put in your own name. I don't care. If you just are in there, they know that, wait a minute, there's another person here who didn't pay for our vote, isn't being swayed by our commercials, isn't just looking at, that guy's more bad than this one is. The worst option out of the 2, or the best option of the bad, that they're still involved, and they have to do something to make sure that person, because as soon as you add one more person to that 5, you've unbalanced the system. 2, just appealing to the donors will not win you elections anymore.
Well,
I'm going to have another person to deal with, and that's why it's important.
Well, I'm going to unbalance the broadcast. I have a couple of family things I have to take care of this evening before I call it a night. So I want to thank you guys once again for the spirited conversation and, of course, your friendship. For those of you that joined us, we love you. We appreciate you guys for being here. For me, I'll catch you guys next week. And remember, when that link comes up, join. We could use the memberships. You guys have a good night. You guys continue talking. I'm going to be watching mobile.
Have a great night.
And by the way, folks, if you missed it last week, and I'm sorry you guys were, both Frank and Jeremy, weren't able to be part of it. But we had a great conversation, me and Mike, talking about not only is a law possible, is it constitutional? What was the law we were talking about last week, Mike?
The law creating death penalty for fentanyl dealers.
That's it. Death for fentanyl dealers, the bill by Marco Rubio. And I think it was really important. One of the most powerful things I took away from that, and a lot of people I know who saw it were telling me, the best question there was not is it legal, is it constitutional, and why? We don't ask that enough. And I'm talking about all news media, YouTube, all political commentators. We need to do this more, folks. We need to ask the question: not is that legal? Why is it legal or not legal?
And like I was saying last week, the first question that we should ask of any piece of legislation that we are looking at, the very first question that we should ask is, does that legislative body have the authority to enact this piece of legislation? If that answer is no, then it should never be introduced.
Yeah,
It
and more
never
people
make it out of committee.
Yeah, more people should say that. Say, you know what? This doesn't fall under the power of Congress. This doesn't fall under the power of my local city council or my state legislator. We should call them out and say, you can't do that. Period. Stop right there. Don't go any further. And if we did that more, other countries like the UK, like the European Union, like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, where they have gone very authoritarian in many ways, they would be looking at our example. The public would be looking at that example and saying, well, maybe our government can't do these crazy things too. And we would see an improvement, I think. I don't know. It's just a way to look at it, folks.
And I know we spend a lot of time focusing on the federal Constitution, but everyone not only needs to know the federal Constitution, okay, or the national Constitution, U.S. Constitution, whatever you want to call it, they need to learn their state constitutions, or at least learn how their state constitution is organized, because some of them are quite long.
Yeah.
How it's organized so that they can actually look up the authority that the state has. Beyond that, you need to look at your county charters. There are a few counties that do have constitutions, but most of them have county charters. And you need to look at the authority granted to the county under those charters. You know the thing.
People just, it's so important. I mean, there's so many things going on. There's news coming out of KTVZ, which is in Oregon. Red flag laws. I don't know if a lot of people noticed that. It came out tonight. That they're celebrating the red flag laws and how they're being used. We have people who don't even know that Marco Rubio put out his bill to punish fentanyl dealers, which is one of the leading causes of overdose deaths in America. Actually, it is the leading overdose death cause in America. And I'm just bewildered that people are just not stopping and going, wait a minute, does the government have even the right to do a red flag law? Because there is no due process. There is no Fourth Amendment. There's no Second Amendment. There's no 15th Amendment. Wait a minute. Why wouldn't the government want to enact a severe punishment against fentanyl dealers that are killing children and Americans en masse? This is a national security threat. It's being pumped into our nation by China. Why wouldn't they want to know more about that? Why wouldn't they want to know if they're constitutional and whether they're being enforced or not? Why is this not happening? why are we allowing politicians to give speeches, political campaign speeches, that are based in the idea that you can demonize people because of their political ideology? It goes back to the same thing that we were just saying, Mike. This is all about, again, knowing your Constitution, speaking up.
Exactly.
And no, because if we are silent, you get steamrolled and you will lose to one of these overreaches of power.
Well, there is one more factor that we need to take a look at. Corruption throughout our governmental system is extremely rampant. Okay, and I don't care what level of government you look at, corruption is very, very prevalent. And the thing is if we actually learned our constitutions, the citizens learned our constitutions, and realized the authority that many of these corrupt politicians don't have, a lot of this corruption would stop. It would end. If we start holding our politicians accountable to the constitutions that they have sworn to defend and support, a lot of the corruption would end.
Which would be a great thing.
Do that. That's our role as citizens. It's our role as citizens to enforce the Constitution, and we fail.
We have to start doing this. I mean, I find it so troubling that news organization can celebrate and a lot of people say, oh, gun crime, blah. Okay, fine, whatever. But red flag laws do not and have never had any impact on gun crime, ever, not even suicides. Never. There is not one study that shows that. There is not one example to put out since 1999 when Connecticut first came up with it. It has never been effective. It has never worked as it has been promised to. And we have government agencies in localities, this is at the local level, they are celebrating that they are stealing people's Second Amendment rights, that they are denying them due process of the law, that this is unlawful punishment under the Eighth Amendment. It is violating privacy. It is destroying families. It is taking away the ability to defend yourself and your family and your property. There are so many problems with this, and yet it is being celebrated, and people are going, oh, that's interesting. It's like, we can't just say that. Or worse yet, yesterday I was CBS, a local CBS affiliate, CBS 6 out of Albany. They were talking about remember the Afghan refugees? I know everyone's forgotten about them. But back in January, I was asking the question. I've asked this to every elected official, local, state, federal level. I've asked them all, how many Afghan refugees are coming to New York State? Where are they going to? Who's paying for them? Where they're going to stay? How are they going to pay for their jobs? Well, we found out after the fact that, well, at least some of them have shown up in Albany, and now they got a job. We don't know when they showed up. We don't know who paid for them to be wherever they're staying in Albany. And we don't know if businesses were incentivized by the state or the federal government or even the city to pay to incentivize businesses to hire these Afghan refugees. By the way, while unemployment is increasing. And I'm sitting here and I asked these questions, literally the same things I just said. I asked, and CBS, that it's hard-coded into the Facebook social media, that if you went and clicked on that very same Facebook post with CBS News, and if you looked at all comments, you would not see my comment. If you went to newest comments, you know how they break up the way you could see the comments? So if you look for all comments, you won't see what I said. I was the second person to make a comment. If you went to newest comments, then it showed up. So they are literally hiding from the public people asking questions, which means more people need to ask questions. Not just like with Rings of Power on Amazon and go, oh, they deleted 5,000. I have seen more articles and more YouTube and internet and social media posts and comments about the Rings of Power by Amazon deleting 5,000 one-star reviews, and that they're actively trying to manipulate public opinion, than I see about any of the issues we've talked about tonight combined. That's terrifying.
It is. It is. Okay. And Dow brings up a good point, and I posted this comment, but it broke up into two parts. Okay. And he said public blowback and willful lack of adherence alone would pull the teeth right out of any legal policy that was attempted if the citizen took the time to understand even half the rights they had.
Yeah.
Okay. And that goes to a very strong point. The willful ignorance of the people to understand the limited authority that government has. They don't understand that government does not have all-reaching authority. Okay? They don't understand that at the federal level, there is a very specifically defined set of powers that the federal government has authority over. Okay? Very, very specific number of powers. At the state levels, if you read through your state constitutions, you will find that they have a very specific set of defined powers that they have authority over. Okay? We need to start educating ourselves. We need to start defeating the ignorance, the willful ignorance that's going on in this country. Until we start doing that, nothing's going to change. We're going to continue down the same path until it gets to a point that there is no other means but to have some type of revolution.
Yeah, we're getting there. Second Civil War.
Well, no, it'd be the third. The first revolution was actually a civil war.
Well, that's against the United Kingdom. I don't.
But we were the United Kingdom.
Yeah, but we were better than
so
that.
It was a civil war.
No, we were better than that. Of course, I'm picking on Agent Black at this second. But yes, it would be technically the third. But again,
okay. And we are destined, because we haven't learned the lessons from history. And the thing is we could go back even prior to the American Revolution and see where the same pattern has repeated throughout history. And that's one of the things that led to our Constitution, was the same patterns repeated over and over and over through history of people not being involved in their governance. Okay. And prior to the United States Constitution, people generally didn't have any means to participate, short of violent uprisings. Okay. And those violent uprisings did eventually lead to documents like the Magna Carta. And documents like there's a document prior to the Magna Carta, and Charter of Rights, I think is what it was called. I'd have to look it up to be for sure. but it came about even before the Magna Carta came out. And that was one of the stepping stones that eventually led to the United States Constitution. And we don't understand that until the United States Constitution came about, citizens still had authority over their government. They just didn't have it documented.
Well, they did have the Magna Carta, which was about 150 years before the Constitution came out, if I remember right, something like that. At least 100 years before. I think it was 150 years before we had the United States. But it wasn't as expressly clear how much power that the citizens had versus government itself.
Well, problem is Magna Carta, Constitution, whatever it is, people nowadays are just too damn willing to give up their rights for the thought that the government can do it better.
The Magna Carta came out over 500 years prior to the Declaration of Independence.
Okay, I got that way wrong.
Okay, Magna Carta came out in 1215.
Okay, I was thinking 1512. All right. So no problem. But you're right, Jeremy. Everyone's taught it's that I think I've called it authoritarian authority bias. Oh, they're elected. So they should know. They were elected, so they're smart. And I don't understand. Jeremy, have you ever met any of your federal level elected figures, either at state level or federal level?
I can't remember. It was very brief. I met a Rob Bishop who was a senator briefly.
Like state senator.
But outside of that, yeah. And then but really outside of that, no.
Okay. So when you met
because they refused to talk to me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But when you were listening to that state senator, did he sound like Einstein? In that, did he sound like a genius? Was he conveying things that no one could have ever imagined ever before?
No, in no disrespect to him, but it sounds like he's reading what people are telling him to read and reading what he's being fed.
Right. So my point being, and that's exactly my point. So he's just as smart as anyone else in that crowd at that moment. And the number of votes he did or didn't get had no impact on his actual intelligence. Why is it that as Americans, we think that just because someone is popular, like LeBron James for some reason, or that they're elected, that they're suddenly brilliant? Like, Biden is supposed to be some kind of wonderkin, this mega mind, and the man he can't make a paragraph. John Fetterman literally had a stroke. And if you go online and try and say John Fetterman doesn't know what he's talking about, that he's wrong or that he's misspoken, people will go, oh my God, they'll either tell you that you're evil because he had a stroke, which to me means, okay, he shouldn't be in elected office because he had a stroke. He's mentally impaired by definition. So really shouldn't even be in the friggin' race. Or they're going to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about because he's John Fetterman. He's an elected official. And I'm sitting here going, does that logic make sense to anyone? He's mentally impaired by definition from his doctors. It is a known fact. So he didn't get smarter because he got votes, and he's not smarter because he is a stroke victim. Not to pick on stroke victims, but you know what? I don't want to elect stroke victims for that reason. He is the living example of why that shouldn't be the case. And yet we have this bias in the media that says, you can't say that. That's unfair. It's insensitive. And of course, he can do the job as well as anyone. Matter of fact, he could probably do it better because he got elected. That doesn't make sense to me. Why do people think like that? Does it? I don't get it.
Oh, you're on point with that. 100%. people just magically, like you said, kids were raised to believe that police have this magic power over the world. And then as we get older, we're told that the government is the end all be all of everything. And rather than question anything and be confrontational, the majority of people choose to go, okay, it doesn't affect me. So, okay, even though it affects them every day in every aspect of their living, and one day when the food plants are shut down and there's no fuel and there's nowhere to get around and you don't have power because you can't power your house because everything's been shut off and everything's been done away with, and you're going to go, well, that's weird. What happened? Pardon me, fuck, the lights were on yesterday. What happened? I don't understand anymore. Why are there police outside my house? What is this police state mentality going on? It wasn't supposed to affect me. It was never supposed to affect me. That was for the people I don't care about.
Well, and here's one other thing, and I want everybody to think about this. Once we get past parties, and there's a lot of people that do vote that are not registered with any party. And these are the swing voters, so to speak. Okay. These are the ones that the Republicans and Democrats are always going after. And if you actually look at what many of them, and even people that are registered Republicans, registered Democrats, if you look at what they vote for, more often than not, you will find out that people are voting for what they believe the candidate will give them.
Yeah.
Well,
like college loan debt.
But hold on that, though. Mrs. Bishop is a registered independent, and I've noticed that whenever like primaries and things like that come around, she doesn't get a ballot to pick things out of. She doesn't get a ballot until the very end. And I think that's the absolute most bullshit thing ever. This two-party system is whack.
It's got its benefits. We could be like Italy or one of the other nations that have what do they call it? Parliamentary system. Which talk about confusion. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
No, ranked choice voting is a whole nother ball of wax. It just is absolutely insane.
That's a whole nother and that's a discussion that we're going to have to get into a lot more on because I don't think people really understand just what the ramifications of ranked choice voting is. They don't understand just how detrimental it will be to our systems. And I'm going to I'm not going to get into it a whole lot tonight, but I do want to give an example. Okay. Alaska is primarily a state.
With what's her name?
Had an election. And this is the first election they had under the new quote unquote ranked choice voting system. 60% of the voters voted for a conservative candidate. However, because of the way ranked choice voting is, and the fact that they had two conservative candidates on the ballot, that 60% of conservative votes was split. And because of ranked choice voting and the way it is conducted, and the fact that you choose a first choice, a second choice, a third choice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, a Democrat won that election, even though the majority of Alaskans voted for a Republican.
Which is why I would never go with ranked choice. It's a horrible system. Makes no sense. Yeah, and Jan mentions it, and she's right. It sucks, and Democrats want it desperately because no one understands how it works, and it really invalidates the will of the public.
It
Because
does.
when your third ranked choice wins just because no one else could win, because no one else took the majority, that's not a reason why they're not the choice. They shouldn't. There shouldn't be a choice other than pick one. But I think that's
Well, the irony
Go ahead.
the irony of it to me that's it's not lost on me is, I mean, we talked last time about this. We talked about the 2000 Mules documentary, and we talked about the ungodly amount of ballots turned in with only that particular election voted on. Now, it's not the same thing, but had that been a ranked choice ballot and they had only selected Biden and nothing else, none of their ballots would have mattered.
You know what I think of ranked choice voting when I think of all these changes they're making to the voting system? Participation trophies. That's what they're trying to turn it into. It's a participation trophy. You get to have all your choices. You get to choose as much as you want. By the way, we're just not going to count almost anything you did unless it works for us.
Well, one of the biggest reasons why a Democrat won on that ranked choice voting is because the way their system is set up is if you didn't put down your second choice, your ballot was no longer valid.
Exactly.
Okay. And if you happen to vote for the candidate that was in third place and you didn't put your second and third choice at each consecutive round, your ballot had a very good chance of being counted as an ineligible ballot. So in other words, your voice was never heard.
Yeah, it was worse than never being heard. It was rejected. It was nullified. And that's probably the worst thing. And Dow mentions a great point. Complication of the voting process automatically should raise a flag for corruption of that process. Yeah, if you can't explain it in one sentence, you've gotten too complicated. There's so many variables.
If people don't understand it, period, no matter how simple it is, if people do not understand it and understand how to vote, the system's too complicated. Plain and simple.
Could you imagine if someone were to pass, if we could pass a law that just said, if it's more complicated, actually they've tried that before, but if it's so complicated, you need 3 lawyers and a couple of PhDs to understand it, then it's not legal, that we can't do that. I mean, they did pass, I forget who passed it. I think it was under Bush in his first term. They passed a legislation simplification bill that you had to use plain language in the bills. Except you still need 3 lawyers to read anything that's put out. Almost every single bill are so complicated and have references to 3 other laws and 3 other bills so that you can understand the one thing in front of you. And then they put in all of their amendments to that bill, which suddenly makes it a poison pill. And it's no longer doing the thing it's supposed to do. And that's why no one gets it. I think that's one of the reasons why people, maybe I'm wrong, you guys can tell me, but I think one of the reasons why when I talk to people about politics and they ask me, and I get people from all parties, when they're confused about something, they go, Mike, I know you've heard about this. Explain this to me. What are they talking about? And I think that's one of the reasons why people are avoiding politics. And it makes me, and again, goes back to it's definitely corruption. They don't want you to understand it. They don't want it to be simple so that you must rely on the whatever they tell you is the summary. So you can go, oh, is that what it's about? Okay, I guess I like it then. Leaving out all the complications and consequences they know that you're not thinking about, so they get what they want. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think it's all about.
No, I tend to agree with you. I also want to bring up the fact that
Yes,
we
I
have
do.
a budget bill coming up here very soon.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this, but there were a lot of things not related to the budget that were put in that bill, hidden in that bill. A lot of anti-gun stuff.
No, you weren't thinking of the
There
$10
always
million
is.
we gave to
Yes.
Pakistan for women's studies.
No.
That was one of my particular favorites.
Mhm. No, there were a lot of new gun laws that were hidden in the new budget bill.
Mhm.
There's like 10 of them.
It's
Okay,
crazy.
and that's one big thing that I believe, and this is something that we need to push, and this is an amendment that I would definitely be behind. An amendment where you cannot add anything unrelated to a piece of legislation in with that legislation.
That sounds good.
That should have just been like common sense from the beginning, but they'd never do that. Just like throwing in a $36,000 raise into the COVID bill.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Which was crazy. It's like, what's that got to do with COVID? Oh, well, since we're passing the bill anyway, might as well just, throw that in. You don't.
And they do that with a lot of stuff that they know has no chance of standing on their own. They will put it into a bill that is a quote unquote must pass bill.
Yeah.
Well, like I don't remember the exacts, but the seatbelt law, they threw all sorts of shit into that seatbelt law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's another thing. The federal government has no authority to tell people that they have to wear a seatbelt. Okay. I mean, you could try to say that it's an interstate commerce thing, but it's not, because you wearing a seatbelt or not wearing a seatbelt has nothing to do with commerce.
Yeah. Yeah. It amazes me the things that, again, it goes back to, but no one's looking up the bills. No one's paying attention. And the news media is only going to give you the summary that will make you vote for what they want. Which is why they virtually never mention the actual bill title, which is the HR, whatever it is, whether it's 2996, HR 8873. They never tell you these things. Why? They don't want you to look it up. They make it almost impossible. I mean, how many times have you looked at someone talking about whatever gun bill, whatever budget bill, and they'll say it's the gun bill or the latest it's the latest budget bill. They'll tell you all about, like, this is what the bill is going to do, but they'll never actually tell you, and here's the name of the bill. Here's a link to the bill, to the text of the bill, so you can read it for yourself. They never do that. New York Times never does it.
No, they don't. Okay, and they never tell you the number of the bill. They never tell you. They tell you a name for the bill, a short name. Okay, and sometimes it's searchable by that. Sometimes it's not. But they never tell you everything's in the bill. They should tell you a brief summary of the bill. And they never talk about the amendments.
Never.
That are added on the bill. And that's where a lot of this stuff that is so repulsive to our Constitution gets thrown in, is under those amendments. Okay. A lot of things that also the citizens would never stand for also gets thrown in through those amendments.
Yeah. It's incredible.
And it's not, and I'm not going to say that it's the liberals that always do that, because it's not.
Well, no.
Okay.
That's something they all do.
Right, exactly. Okay, and there's things with the things that were thrown in on the Freedom Act, okay, that are so repulsive to our Constitution that, and we all did it under the guise of security, and
Yeah, Patriot Act.
it didn't make us any more secure.
Nope.
If anything, it opened us, it made us more vulnerable because we no longer have the privacy that we used to have. And it also opened up doors that not only our federal government has access to, but other governments have access to. And that's what they don't understand. If the NSA can get this information, so can the CCP. So can um, British British spies. Okay, whoever, any other nation can get a hold of those. What do we got coming up here, Jeremy?
What's that, Jeremy?
I think Jeremy oops.
You're on mute. You're mute. You're on mute, Jeremy.
You're muted, Jeremy.
I fixed it. My computer froze. I was trying to see what was going on and change screens. Back. Just kidding.
That was
I was
funny.
asleep. Don't listen to me.
By the way, one thing I wanted to mention about your flyer, I like the fact, and I know almost no one probably noticed this. You've got the eagle looking to the right, which is looking towards peace.
Mm-hmm.
It's when people realize that you've got this is an eagle that's looking at peace with the Second Amendment. But most people don't know where the eagle looks. Is he looking to the left, which is wartime, or is it to the right for peacetime? You have it towards peacetime. And why is that peace? Because of the Second Amendment. Yeah, there's deep levels to stuff that most people don't even think about. They're right there in front of you. So I just wanted to point out, nice job doing that because I noticed it.
I wish I could say it was intentional, but I'm glad we.
Well, you should have said it because I thought it was intentional. Yeah. Jeremy's looking at Twitch. He's like, "Oh, I got to Twitch out because we hit the 2-hour mark," and Jeremy's like, "Twitch time."
Yeah, actually, we're going to go ahead and sign off. However,
I spaced out there.
That's all right.
I do want to remind everybody that we do have the Let Freedom Ring membership drive for 2022 starting up. Actually, it's going to be our 2023 membership drive because it's going to be
at this point
November 1st, which will essentially be the end of 2022. So it's our 2023 membership drive. And remember that the first 250 people to sign up as paid members are eligible to win this custom engraved Henry Golden Boy rifle. Okay. I encourage everybody to become a member. Again, that will open up November 1st. And we will be posting links on our website and on all of our social media, and we'll be promoting it on this show as well. Guys, I want to thank everybody that participated in the conversation tonight. Dale, Jan, Agent Black, thank you very much for joining the conversation and joining the show. Michael, Jeremy, thank you for being on. I want to thank Frank, even though he's no longer here. Guys, it's been a great conversation tonight, and I'm looking forward to our conversation next week as well. With that, I want to invite everybody to visit our website at l1f.us. There you will find articles, reviews, and a bunch of other content. We've got some videos on there, etc. You can also visit our YouTube page. Just do a search for the Liberty First Foundation or L1F Range Report. On the Range Report, you find a lot of videos on various gun reviews. And on the Liberty First Foundation, you can find several interviews. I will be getting the Liberty First Foundation going again, our YouTube channel. However, right now with my computer, it's very hard to edit videos. Also join us on our Facebook page at the Liberty First Foundation. You can also join our Facebook group, the Liberty First Foundation. And you can find us on Twitch. I mean, not on Twitch, on Twitter.
Not yet.
On Twitter under the Liberty First Foundation.
You know what? If we get enough people, if we get 50 people to subscribe to the channel, then we will do. I'll work it out with Jeremy, and I'm more than happy because I know, Mike,
So-
you're not into the whole video game Twitch thing. Me and Jeremy,
I actually am. I'm an affiliate on Twitch under the handle Primo Libertas.
Okay, I didn't know that. I don't have one, but we could work out something. You know what, folks? We will work it out. 50 new people.
And actually, if we get subscribers showing up on Primo Libertas's Twitch channel, we'll live stream to them every week.
There you go.
I'm going to start doing some phone live streams at the range, actually.
Okay, and we'll start live streaming to Twitch. Honestly, if we have the audience
Everywhere.
start live streaming to. Okay, if you guys got
my accidental foobar made a good point.
Yeah, yeah, it did.
So that I want to say good night to everybody, and thank you for watching.
Good night, everybody. Just remember,